Good afternoon. How are you? Well, if I fall down, it's because they say the temperature feels like 107 degrees. And it's true. And there have been thunderstorms. And so you may hear thunder while I'm talking to you. And it's because the temperatures and the weather are quite out of control. In recent days, and it's how I'm built, I suppose, and maybe you are the same way, I have random conversations with people. And I try to ask questions that don't sound like I'm a prosecutor. And since it's that experience that defines my ability to get at information, I have to just sort of watch myself when I do that. But I've had conversations recently about these voters that are not the MAGA or maggot voters, but they are kind of the middle class voters, and they are the people who could be the deciding factor in whether we have a monarchy or democracy or a republic that allows for voting by the people. And the discovery I have is that, and this is no surprise to you, so it's not a major discovery, I suppose, is that we have people who are impassive to everything, except if it seems to be working for me in terms of my income and so forth. Now, I've tried to, in my mind, think about who this reminds me of. And it's a long time ago, so I'm not trustworthy on the details, but I do know the general overview. And it was that Sinclair Lewis created a character we all know, if not from his book, from life's experience. And that character was Babbot. Now, that's a person who is especially a business or a professional man who conforms unthinkingly to what he finds to be middle-class standards. Now, H.L. Mencken, a great essayist, very sharp wit, a great person to read both for his content and if you want to study how to write in such ways. And he said in his comments, and he really was a great supporter of Sinclair Lewis, and he says, Babbot is only concerned about what people think of him. What people think of him. So if you have this vacuum at your heart, and you're uncertain what's important in your life, and perhaps the only thing that matters is that you please others because there's so little of you to participate with others, then you're close to the character Babbot, and you become a political figure in our present existence. Mencken said his analysis and summary of Babbot was that person's politics is communal, mob, herd, in other words, placed on him. And I would say, and this is a figure of speech, I've met Bobbits by the dozens, all with other names, of course, but they're all Bobbits. And they say, they come to the following, and I had a conversation very recently with someone who kind of crystallized the type for me. And yes, this is not done with statistics, but there's such a mass of them, you can close your eyes and reach in and find them. I'm in America. Okay, that's one thing. I'm not at war anyplace else. So I'm indifferent to it. Even when we drop bombs on Iran, say. I am indifferent to what's helping elsewhere. I'm indifferent to that. I had the specific question, what about the observation of a child dying of starvation, held by our mother? Oh, doesn't affect me. It's such a tiny thing. I just sort of feel little things about it. In my experience, Most people think of John Dunn where that we all participate and the loss of anyone is a loss that we individually feel. Apologize to those who wanted me to say the words exactly the way John Dunn did, but I did not. So this character feels twinges, but no obligation to do anything, at the sight of victims in ongoing wars. They're not here, those people, but actually they are. They're killed by gunfire. They are being ripped up if they're young enough and Hispanic looking enough, if they have some color in their face and not from tan, from life, from genetics, from working in this country, not being a criminal in this country, surviving in this country, a country that's supposed to offer freedom and those benefits. Babbot is, I'm not resisting the American march to monarchy. No, I'm not doing that. I comfort myself. There's a line in the Fantastics where the young girl says, I'm special. I'm very special. I love to taste my tears. These people love to taste their tears. They love to feel righteous. They love to feel like they are something special and so forth. And in the story, the original story, things go wrong and there's an effort to become different. But the settling point is back where it started. Some of the Bobbits may be MAGA folk, but they are as likely to be voters with the same kind of philosophy because Trump, for example, is taking care of business, and that's all they care about. So if you want to catch up with what the thinking is of those people that are not so simply in one category or the other, then you have to think of Babbot. And if I said Bobbit a minute ago, I'm sorry, I apologize. And another book by Sinclair Lewis that caused a lot of trouble in America, I think because it was true, is Elmer Gantry. And it's about the religions that fail their promise. And America hasn't moved very far from Thorstein Veblen's book, The Theory of the Leisure Class. And the theory, which is interesting, is that despite what you were taught in economics, these people think it's so important to have a certain item, they're prepared to pay more. In fact, they want to brag about paying more for something. And Veblen referred to that as conspicuous consumption. So is it true that all the problems we have, sorry my thumb got in the way, is it true that for all the problems we have, on the other side of the aisle, meaning those who favor monarchy and not democracy, we have people who don't really care how they get what they want, and particularly helped by the fact that others share their indifference to ethics, to humanity. In fact, celebrate it. Stand on a stage with a chainsaw and cheer the people who believe that it's a really good thing to fire people. We're now paying small fortunes for people who are being paid for work but being barred from work. Only in a society that's lost its way, that claims to be a capitalistic society, can you find such an example. Today, when we talk about all the various ways things are going wrong, at the heart of it is a contingent of people that may agree with you and me, but can't bring themselves to read the things to educate themselves, that are lost to what they could do to make a difference. And our obligation is, following from Plato, really, in the Republic, is the notion that we have to be the missionaries to lead others, to inform them, at least of their alternatives, of how they preserve a life for themselves at risk by the wealthiest who don't care about them. Don't care about you and myself either. So that's the challenge that we have in American politics. And what drives me crazy is we're making the same mistake again in presuming in this country that we're going to have a fair election, that we're going to have an election. And so that's all we have to do. And if that is all we do, we will lose this nation. There's no question in my mind. But if we continue one by one to educate people what this means in conversations, in demonstrations, in the newspapers, those that can still speak the truth, on TV, those who can still speak the truth, then we will overcome this menace and we will consign Trump and his illicit, corrupt conspirators to the ignominy and shame and perhaps imprisonment that they well deserve. So, hey, we got through this, and I'm still walking without there being rains coming down, no thunder or lightning, and with any luck, I'll be out tomorrow to talk on on what the new developments are. So I say goodbye to you from our Cathedral of Trees. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.